Shalom Aleichem, Good Erev Shabbos, Chodesh Elul. We continue speaking about the Bobover Hasidim and Chasidis and the Bobover Rebbe and Lubavitch. So this is a fascinating story that I heard last week. A viewer called me and told me this story. This was Rabbi Kalman Weinfeld, who was a Rav in a shul in Crown Heights, and he's one of the rabbinic coordinators for the OK Kashrus organization. In 1952, Rabbi Tzaddik Sheingarten was the wife of Ruth Sheingarten, who had many yechidus in the correspondence with the Rebbe as an educator and a social worker of kinds. Reb Tzaddik himself was a great Talmud Chacham. He had a shul in his basement across the big Bobover shul on 48th Street between 15th and 16th Avenue in Borough Park. And Reb Tzaddik could be seen on certain clips sitting behind the Rebbe. Reb Tzaddik learned in Kletsk, I believe, before the war, and he knew a lot of the Gedolim, and he knew a lot of the Rebbes, and he became a Lubavitcher Chassid, a Pnimisdiker Chassid. So in 1952, he was in Gan Eden HaTachten. This is the language that he used when he told the story to Rabbi Weinfeld. He was in Gan Eden HaTachten, and he was waiting his turn to go into Yechidus with the Rebbe, and he heard crying coming from the room, bitter, profuse crying and tears. And then he heard the Rebbe say to whoever was in the room, "Was weint ihr? Se wart auf euch a melucha auf dem Schwell." In English, why do you cry? There waits for you a kingdom on the Shvel, on the step going from the room to Gan Eden HaTachten, or Gan Eden HaTachten into the room. The idea being, it's right there, your kingship, your royalty, your kingdom is waiting for you. Do what you need to do, and you'll be a king, and you'll have a tremendous following. And then the door opened up from Yechidus, and a person walks out, and the Rebbe repeats again, and Rabbi Sheingarten heard this. He repeats, "Gedenk, remember, Se wart auf euch a meluche auf der Schwell." The exact same words, but this time the Rebbe started with the word Gedenk, remember. Who walked out? It was Reb Shlomo Halberstam, the Bobover Ruv, the Bobover Rebbe. He came out of Yechidus. This is the story. 1952. The Bobover Rebbe at the time lived in the west side of Manhattan, and he had a small minyan. I heard from Rebbetzin Karlbach, Rebbe Lechaim Karlbach's wife, who told me that her husband and his brother Shlomo Karlbach, they were twins, it helped in 1948 and those 49, those years, they helped make the minyan many times by the Bobover Rebbe because it was a small crowd. And then they liked his nigunim, and they started to come to his Malava Malkas, and they really became close to him. So the west side was not his, it wasn't the people that were Chassidim. There were very few. in general in the West Side in those years. So he didn't find this place there. That's why in 1955 he moved to Crown Heights, and he opened up his shul and his yeshiva, and he had a mikveh, because there were many more of his Hasidim and people who would participate. When he came to America in 1946, I think I told you last week, he had Yechidus with the Frierdiker Rebbe. And he was broken and shattered. He lost his wife, he lost children. He went through the Holocaust, and he was a very broken person, like many other people, including other Rebbes too. It's interesting that the only Rebbe, in a way, that had experience in Europe, in Russia, with Stalin, Yamach Shemam, and then had an experience in the Holocaust in 1939, and then came to America in 1940, was the Frierdiker Rebbe. Now, why am I telling you this? The Frierdiker Rebbe was a mamutza, kind of, an intermediary, where he had a taste of both horrors, communism, Stalinism, and Nazism, Yamach Shemam. And then he miraculously was saved, and he comes to America so early in 40. The Rebbes that were here, the Bayaner Rebbe, the Kapishnitzer Rebbe, the Mozhitzer Rebbe, they all avoided the Holocaust. The Frierdiker Rebbe did not. But he came here in 40. People who started to come from Europe post-Holocaust, 1945, 46, 47, identified with him. And I'm talking about Hungarians, Satmar Chassidim, Kleisberg Chassidim, Bobover Chassidim. And the Bobover Rebbe himself related to the Frierdiker Rebbe as a father figure. And I'm not only talking about the fact that he wore a spudik and he had this beautiful face and beard, and he looked so royal and so regal, and he fit the mode of a Polish, Hungarian Hasidic Rebbe. The Frierdiker Rebbe's heart, his warmth, his fatherly love and mercy was what drew all these other Hasidim to him. Now, I don't know this, but I would think that the Rebbe knew about the visit of the Bobover Ruv in 1946 to the Frierdiker Rebbe. Only 6 years later, in 1952, seemingly the Bobover Rebbe still was going through a very difficult time. So he goes to seek another father figure, our Rebbe, who, mind you, was born in 1902, and the Bobover Ruv was born in 1907. He was only 5 years older. The Rebbe was 5 years older. Nevertheless, he felt in this person, specifically, that he wasn't Hungarian, and he wasn't Polish, and he wasn't Galicianer. He was a Russian, and he was a Schneerson, and he was a Rebbe, a Tzaddik. He felt him to be another father figure. And that is why, possibly, he went to see him in 1952, because he felt the Rebbe can relate to his pain. And the Rebbe did relate to his pain. The Rebbe's words, "Why are you crying?" was not to crush him or diminish him. It was the following words after that there's a kingdom waiting for you. Shift your focus from the negative to the positive, and you'll see what you can do for Bobover Chassidim and Klal Yisrael. And indeed, that's what happened. Look, it's 80 years later, 70 years later or so, and the Bobover Chassidus is blooming, Baruch Hashem. Yes, there's two groups and two Rebbes, and we're not going to discuss that right now. I'll let you read about that in my upcoming book, Im Yirtzeh Hashem. But the fact is that the Rebbe's words of 1952 have been fulfilled 100-fold. So here we are, when we talk about such a tzaddik as the Bobover Rebbe Reb Shloimeh, and we are in Chodesh Elul, and we're looking to understand how to take all the difficulties we've had so far this year, to abolish them, to eliminate them, to transform them. Remember to focus on the good. What good has come out of this pandemic? What good can we find in the negative? It's interesting, in today's Shir Tanya, Laskilcha Bina, Igeres HaKodesh, Yud Aleph, that's the Alter Rebbe's message. Look for the good, because it's only good. May Hashem help that each and every one of us should go into Shabbos Kodesh with a paradigm shift of transforming negativity to positivity, and we should continue climbing the ladder of Tshuva and Chodesh Elul to be Zoche to the Geula Shlema B'Korev Mamish.